So this is a brief demonstration of Geomagic Freeform and how you would make a simple brace in here. So as you can see, I've already imported a scan data set, and any purple object over here in the tree is a scan, a polygon, or it can be imported from an STL, PLY, a triangle object, right? As you can see from this icon here. So this is a triangle object that we've loaded in. And Freeform is primarily a voxel modeler. So what it works with is I can take these triangles or meshes and fill them with voxels and convert them. And you'll see when I do that, it changes them over to like a flesh tone color like these icons are on the tree. But before I do that, I'll go ahead and do a little bit of mesh cleanup here, and then we'll get started modeling. So as you can see, I aligned this to the world. So I brought in the scan originally. If I hide this object and show the other one, I brought it in there, and that is usually where the original scan was started. And all I did is I took um, this tool over here, reposition piece, and I just went to a home view, my XY. If I hit F2, it takes me to my home front view like this right here. And you can just grab the model like this and move it around. So I just grabbed it, and then I can use my haptic device, which is connected to Freeform here. So my haptic device is like a 3D mouse, but it also has touch feedback. So you see, I just did something like this, and then once I get it close, I usually switch over to this little arrow directory, and I can move things, I can translate and rotate things very fine increments to get it into position. So I'm just going to go ahead and just skip forward for my object that's already aligned, because it only takes a second to do that, but you can see I already have it aligned. So one thing that I usually do is I'll crop some stuff away before I do anything else. So if I look at this from the front view and zoom in, I have a lot of different selection tools over here. So if I come over to my mesh tools, I can just window in and select that whole top area and hit delete. Just go back to my front view. I can do the same thing here. And hit delete there. So I'm not going to worry. I'm going to leave that little bit there because I'll work on that when it's in voxel mode. If I need to look at it from different angles and cut it from different angles, you can do that easily here. If I just wanted to chop that more square, normal to the direction of the leg, I can always do that too. So now once I get my mesh to a good starting point, you do have some more mesh tools in here. So if I wanted to do an analyze and repair, I can come in and I can analyze some different small issues that you tend to see on a mesh. Over here, different self-intersecting things, you can run this on there. The only reason why I bring it up is it looks like there might have been some little areas here, but it looks pretty clean. Just my eyes are deceiving me there. So once I have this aligned and ready to go, I can go ahead and turn this into a voxel object. So if I just come over to Mesh Utilities, and it'll just load up the dialog box. So here's my dialog. I can type in a voxel dimension, so this edge sharpness value. It's essentially going to take and create a volumetric object. Volumetric pixels are what voxels are, and you have to select a resolution. What size grains of sand is it going to fill up this object with? So I'm going to use a 0.5 millimeter resolution here and hit apply. Now once it finishes, it just automatically takes you into this reposition piece mode, which I'm just going to get out of it. Like, allows you to move it around again if you need to. So now we'll just do a little bit more cleanup. So obviously this bottom area is probably going to be a focus. So if I zoom into this area, I have a lot of different smoothing tools in here, and this smooth area tool has a little feature that I like to use for cleanups. So I'm using the haptic and I can feel the edge. I can go around the inside and around the outside of this area, mask it off, and I can say defeature. So the defeature command is going to take whatever I select and just remove it from the surface and do a hole fill after. It's buried inside of this smooth area tool. You can use it in there, or we have another option over here, but I just like to use it in this mode because once I'm done, a lot of times I'll come in and I'll smooth this transition afterwards. So if I just grab that and then hit smooth, I can relax those bounded areas. Now there's another smoothing tool called Hot Wax that's really interesting. It mimics like what an artist would do, where they sculpt in wax, where it kind of melts the surface with a torch to smooth out areas. So it's a very gentle smoothing tool. So I like to use that sometimes for those types of areas. Now over here, the same thing goes here. I can come in and I can use the hot wax. You see how it's like it's melting it away. Or I can come in and use that same defeature. Just go down that area and then hit defeature and it will remove that area. So once that finishes, I'll show you a little bit of what I usually do. I like to touch up the anatomy a little bit to, you know, I don't necessarily want my brace to go down inside of every little area like this. So sometimes if my brace is going to come out here, I will go over to that hot wax tool again. And the hot wax, I can smooth areas, but it also has the option to smooth add. So when you smooth add, you'll see kind of what it's doing here. It'll add material to the surface. And what you can do is you can kind of join these pieces together and even fill in some of these areas. Now I just show this tool just in case. I don't know exactly what process everyone uses when they create different types of orthopedic braces and things like that. But this is definitely a really handy tool to be able to come in and just add material. There's a lot of different ways you can add material. This is just a really easy way to do so. So I can come in and smooth add. So it's doing a smooth algorithm and adding material. And then if I discover some more areas that I'm concerned with, you can do the defeature again. And I can just select multiple regions here. And then hit defeature. So once that finishes, I'll show you how. A lot of times I also like to correct the angles of the anatomy itself. Looks like I missed a spot here. Let's go ahead and fix that too. So I'll correct some of the angles. Also, I will add some relief to different areas on the model as well. So sometimes around the ankle, I've run into times where people wanted to add relief to ankles. Gives it a little extra area. But before I do that, we'll go ahead and correct the anatomy. Now, this isn't always necessary. I've just run into times where customers wanted to do this, and it's a really helpful tool, and it's a really powerful tool. So you can see however the anatomy is scanned is how it's captured right there. It's frozen. But if you need to move it, it is possible to do so using the bend and twist tool. So with this bend and twist tool, what I can do is I can select a plane, or I can even establish my own plane by coming in here and click right there. So you see I just clicked a spot there on the surface, and then this zone here I can manipulate it around. I can open it up, I can move it around, and I can even come over here and change the zone influence area. So what I'll do here is just look at it from one angle, correct it, rotate around to the front view, and I'm pretty close there. And I try to keep it close to that center axis of the ankle because the closer I am, the easier it is to correct the anatomy and keep it as normal as possible. It won't stretch or manipulate it as much if I keep it close to what's typical there. So once I establish this zone, I can go into the bend mode of the tool. So I establish the zone that I want to correct. And then once I do that, it will go into this bend mode, and you'll see the side that's going to bend and move turn green, and then the anatomy that's not going to move at all is just going to stay that flesh tone color. So you can see here, I can grab and manipulate the anatomy and move the angle front to back. And then in this view, I can switch over to my side, and this is why I like to align it to the world coordinate system, is it makes it real easy to come in here and correct. Now you can only go so far before you're starting to manipulate the geometry to the point to where it might not completely mimic real life. But you can see I'm getting really close. I do have the ability to twist. See that? Which I don't want to do in this instance, but I can twist if I need to. So it's bend and twist. Now, once I establish the posture that I want to, I can hit apply, and it will add those changes in for me, which will take a second here to calculate. So now that it's finished, let's just take a look. Again, what I also do is come over here and add a little bit of relief sometimes to the ankle. So if I come over to this tool, I can grab a gradient brush. And this gradient brush here, if I just select one like this, will allow me to mask off a region. And whatever is white is going to offset, and whatever is black is not going to offset. And then you can dictate a dimension. So if I say, I'll exaggerate it at first just to show it. So if I make this a little larger, and then I say 5 and I preview it, you'll see it'll offset 5. So I usually do like 1 millimeter because that's what's been requested before. And then hit apply. And that will offset whatever is blue, and it kind of gradients out to an offset. So you can add gradient to an area and then just give it, if there are pressure points, you can use this tool to do something like that and add different areas around the model. And then again, if I want to take some of this area here and smooth it, it'd probably be a good idea to come in and smooth all of this area here to take that hair and relax it. So if I go around the part, just masking off again any area with hair, because I can more aggressively smooth that area and not affect the anatomy in any way. So I'll grab all of that, and you have sliders down here at the bottom to adjust how much detail to preserve and how much to smooth it. So if I hit apply, you'll see it'll ghost out some of those areas. So you can come in and relax the hair, smooth it. We'll give it a second to run here. So now that is done, just get out of that tool. You can see that we smoothed it out. So now we transition over to actually creating the brace itself. There's a whole host of ways of doing it. I'll just show a couple different options here. So one really easy way is to go ahead and create a plane like this and sketch where you want that brace to be in 2D. Now if you do this with this method, you can just come over and use 2D sketching tools again. I could just draw some lines and arcs. They don't have to be lines. You can do curves as well. In this instance, I'll just do those. Now, once I do that, we have a tool called Shell Cut Clay. And this is a tool that we designed to do like some advanced offsetting. Just a second, looks like I missed one of these endpoints over here. So this will turn blue when it is a closed loop. So see there, now it's a closed loop. I'll be able to use it in my other tool. So Shell Cut Clay. What Shell Cut Clay is going to do is it's going to extrude this through the object. It's going to offset the entire object and then Boolean intersect those two pieces and subtract the inner anatomy. So that doesn't typically make a lot of sense when I explain it, but if I show it, this makes a lot more sense. So I can actually type in thickness values in here. I can tell the software to create it as a new piece, and I can establish what that new piece resolution is going to be, and then hit apply. So it will do all those steps that I described in one routine. Again, it's going to extrude, offset, Boolean intersect all the pieces together to create one offset brace. So as you see here, what it does, again, is extrudes that and intersects it with that mesh. So if I hide the mesh, you see that it created a brace shape here. So it does that all in one step. We call it Shell Cut Clay is what it is. Now obviously there's no way to get into this, so you would need to create some splitting ways of splitting the part in order to break it into different pieces. So there's a whole host of different ways to do that. I'll just select a couple real quick to show how you can do it. One of them is to, again, come back to these 2D planes and sketch on the surface. So if I come over here and grab this, and you can see I'm just going to draw like a split line down the side here. And draw a curve there. Now, we'll just come to the other side, and I'll create a plane over here. Grab that plane and move it to the other side. There we go. And I'll sketch on that one. And we'll just draw right here. One more there. So now I'll grab my curve again. See, I drew curves on either side. And we'll just grab this plane and move it out a little bit. So it's out of the material there. So I just drew two different curves on either side, and I can actually use those curves to create a surface, to cut with. So if I grab those two curves and I copy them into 3D curves and then I connect them together into a little surface patch, and then come over to surface patches here and click on it, you'll see that it creates that little CAD surface patch there. And then I can come over to separate, grab my surface, tell it to cut this, and then touch the object to go ahead and cut it. So the separate tool will break these into front and back for you automatically into two separate pieces. Now with this method, the nice thing about it is there's a zero thickness surface there, which can be good or bad depending on what you're trying to do. So there's no tolerance there between the two shapes. They fit exactly together. Now if you need a buffer between the two, if you want a little zone between there, this way will do it as well, but I have another option that I like to use to break it, and I'll show the front, breaking the front into two pieces. So if I turn those curves off, turn the surface patch off, you'll see that we broke it into front and back. So if I come over, I activate that internal piece, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate it. And now if I sketch on the front of it, I can sketch directly on the anatomy with my haptic device here. A curve wherever I want to cut it. So if I wanted to cut right down the middle, I could grab those. And then I have this tool called Ridge Tool. Now the Ridge Tool, it will follow the normal of the surface and the curve, and you can create like a ridge that sticks up just like the name of the command states. So you can adjust the width and height. So I'll just exaggerate it so you see here. I have it set for 1 millimeter width, but if I say 10 millimeter, you can see I can cut a 10 millimeter groove between the two, or I can just drop it back down to 1, and you'll see that it'll create it that way. And if I hit the apply, it'll go ahead and create that piece. So now with the ridge created, I can come over and Boolean that away from my foot brace, this piece 2 right there. So now if I turn that off and I turn my ridge off, you'll see that we cut that piece in half using the ridge. Now another thing that people like to do is add like the company logo or the designer to the surface. So using that same tool that I had on before, I can actually come over and grab our logo, and just zoom in to a different spot on the brace here. And just shrink it down using the hotkeys here. So this is resolution dependent, so it's like 0.25 millimeters. So if I raise the resolution higher, I can make this sharper if I want to. It just depends on what I want to do. So if I just say I want to push this in 0.5 millimeter inset, it'll take our logo and imprint it on the surface of the part. Another thing people like to do is add areas of relief. Maybe there's cutout areas that they want to remove. So for example, on the back here, let's turn on that piece there, and then we'll sketch on the anatomy actually. So if there were areas that I just wanted to remove from the brace, whether it's a pattern that you're trying to create or venting. There's all these different options here, but I can add just different areas on the model. And I don't have to do it all in one curve too, so you can see if I wanted to take two curves and add a spot there. Now the way this works is if I just draw these bounded shapes on the surface of the part, I can come over and say emboss with curve. And I'm going to offset that thicker than the brace itself. So you'll see this will offset on the inner piece. And I'll do the same thing here. Now I'll subtract this inner piece from the actual brace itself, the rear piece. Just make sure I know it's the shell cut object. So I come in here and say Boolean, remove from shell cut. Now once I do that, you'll see it will remove or cut away from the brace right there. Just turn that off. So there we've added some cutaway regions. And then if you needed to remove any other areas too, there's all kinds of sketching and CAD-based tools where I could cut this heel off if I needed to remove that for relief areas. But this is a good overview of how you can take and create a brace directly from the anatomy using some curve tools and our shell cut and offsetting clay tools. And these models now can just be export to STL, PLY, OBJ, different mesh formats, and then you can go 3D print them from there if you need to. So this is an overview of creating a brace inside of Freeform.